we're back here in the Walton Law Firm segment of the show with Trip Walton. We are going to talk about car insurance. Of course, just about every state now has a required minimum coverage for car insurance. We're going to talk about Alabama and Georgia, mostly Alabama, because in Georgia, if you don't have car insurance, they kind of escort you, don't they?
Yeah, they do with everything over there. But they got a lot of room in their jails.
Well, you know, Georgia, I'm going to get historical on you for a minute. Georgia was founded as a penal colony. That's where all the other colonies sent their prisoners, so they got experience.
They believe in it.
I've been to jail in Georgia. Trust me, I know. Yes, I was in jail in Georgia.
It was a false arrest, though.
It was false arrest, and I actually sued them and won. Yeah. But they don't mind putting you in jail in Georgia. It's like you walk down the street, let's go to jail.
No doubt about it.
But we're talking about riding freely instead of jail. Boy, I tell you. Now, in Alabama, you're required to have a minimum amount of coverage for
liability coverage.
Right.
You're supposed to have 25/50/25.
Okay.
If we got the screen, if we can put the screen up there on this deck page, what you get from your insurance carrier is something that looks like this. And it may not be clear, but if you've got one, you need to look at the show next time. Don't leave the show right now, but when you're looking at a rerun of this show, get your declaration page out, and you look on the left side. We got a 2005 compact car. We just put any car description up there. The next thing is coverage. Most of them have this same setup. You come across limits of your coverage, the deductible, and then the premium. We're not concerned with premiums because premiums vary based upon whether you go with State Farm, Allstate, Progressive, Geico. They all have different premiums for different coverage.
Well,
so
Alabama
we're not going to talk about premium. Alabama insurers,
yes.
Everybody's got their own premium. Now, the first thing that is required, really the only thing that is required, is automobile liability insurance. That goes to someone else if you hit or hurt them, or if you destroy their property in a collision. So if you run into somebody and you've got the minimum $25.50 and they sue you, your insurance company is subject to pay up to $25,000 for the first person and a total of $50,000. So if there's 5 in the car and you've only got this kind of coverage, they basically have to split up $50,000 between 5 people. This is minimum. I would never recommend somebody have minimum coverage because it really depends on what you've got to protect. The plaintiff, the injured party, does not have to accept your liability coverage. They can sue you and go above it. That'll either force you into bankruptcy or force you to sell your house to pay them. So if you've got a lot of property that's subject to being taken in a lawsuit, you might want to up your limits of automobile liability insurance. Again, it is required by law. The next, probably most important to me, and the one I see the most lacking in most of our cases, is underinsured. It's uninsured or underinsured motorist coverage. It is part of your automobile liability policy. You have to get it unless you waive it. So if you're looking at your policy and you can't tell, you might want to call your agent and find out if you have it. If you do not have it, at least get the $25,000, $50,000 minimum coverage, because this is what happens. If you're in a wreck, say automobile X runs a red light and hits you, and you're injured, seriously injured, and they have no insurance, you can come up under your uninsured motorist coverage to collect. Your carrier, your insurance company, will basically jump over to the other car that hit you, and you will be in an adversarial position for a while. That is, until liability is satisfied or who's at fault, and until damages are fixed. Then there's somewhat of a degree of good faith that your insurance company owes you, but you won't see much of it. But if you don't have uninsured motorist coverage and you're hit by an uninsured driver and you're injured, then you're zeroed out. It's bankruptcy all the way around. So always have uninsured, underinsured. And when I say uninsured, underinsured, the same happens if you're hit by somebody who only has $25,000. Say they run the red light, you're in the hospital, and your bill gets up to $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 in a 2 or 3 day stay at the hospital. The person who hits you only has $25,000. That's all you're going to get from them unless you have underinsured motorist coverage. That could come over on top of what the defendant has on their car, and you can get, depending on how many cars you have, you can put 3 on one policy, when you put 3-on-1 policy, you can stack it, and a stacked policy with minimum coverage with 3 cars gets you $75,000. It's very complicated. It's very hard to understand when you're just talking about it like we are today. But if I'm you, I'm pulling out my declaration page from whatever my carrier is, State Farm, Allstate, Alabama Insurance, whoever it is, and going down to the shop, going down to their store and say, do I have uninsured, underinsured motorist coverage? If not, give it to me. And I would get something more than the minimum. I carry 100/300 on my cars, and I've got 5 cars, so I can stack it up to over $1 million in coverage if I'm hit by a driver who has no insurance. The next thing on the list coming down the side of the page is MedPay. MedPay pays you whether you hit a deer, you hit a tree, you're in a car wreck, whatever. MedPay is there to help you pay for your medical expenses if you have it. Many people do not have it, which is a shame, particularly when they don't have health insurance. So if you do not have health insurance, I would recommend that you add MedPay to your car insurance. This policy we're looking at here has a $5,000 in MedPay, which means this. It will pay up to $5,000, not a penny more, on your medicals that are related to the accident. So if you have a $2,000 or $3,000, $4,000 in medicals, you're covered. If you've got $10,000 in medicals, you're still going to owe $5,000 more. Now that MedPay will cover anybody in your vehicle. I carry $25,000 on my vehicle. Even though I've got great health insurance, I carry kids all the time to movies and ball games and things like that that are friends of my children, and I don't know what they got. So if I have a wreck, each one of them can get up to $25,000 from my car insurance policy, whether I run in the ditch dodging a deer or whether somebody hits me. It doesn't matter. Fault does not matter with MedPay. Now the next thing is auto collision coverage. If you've got a cheap old car, you're not worried about it ever having to replace it, and I had one like this. I had one of my children was bad about ramming into stuff. So I bought him a $3,500 vehicle, and after I had it 2 years, I took the collision coverage off of it because I wasn't going to keep it if he wrecked it. And sure enough, he did wreck it. He hit the side of a bridge, and I sold it for salvage, so we never had a claim. But collision coverage fixes your vehicle, and you say, well, when I'm in a wreck, I go down to my carrier and I say, I've been in a wreck, it's the other guy's fault. They say, well, we don't need to do anything. Well, that's not necessarily true. First of all, you need to ask about your underinsured. Second of all, you need to ask about MedPay. And third of all, you need to see if you want them to handle your collision damage, and then they go after the other carrier. You will have to minus out your deductible. If you come across on the sheet, you'll see it has a deductible over here in the deductible category. If you've got a $1,000 deductible on your collision coverage, you pay the first $1,000 of the repairs, and your carrier pays the remainder amount, assuming y'all can reach an agreement on what the actual cash value was. And we won't get into actual cash value today because that's very complicated. But collision coverage is just that. It fixes damage to your vehicle, whether you were at fault or the other person was at fault. You can use it either way. Now, the next thing we have is comprehensive insurance. Comprehensive pays for stuff like storm damage, if the neighbor's limb falls off the tree on top of your car, if you're picked up by a tornado and thrown into the ditch and it jams up your car, if somebody vandalizes your car with a key, or somebody knocks out a window and steals your purse. Why my wife has that happen to her about 3 times a year, I do not know. But they pay for the window every time to put it back in, and then she has to go through what I was in her purse and try to get the value, and then the purse. Thank God she uses cheap purses.
I think that's a wife thing because my wife likes to put about $3-4 in the ashtray, so they'll break a window to take $3.
The police always tell my wife, "Why didn't you put this stuff in the trunk, Lulu?" And she says, "Well, I was in a hurry." But if you leave stuff out in a big city or a little city for people to look at in today's world, they're gonna knock your window out and go get it. But that's what that coverage is for, is comprehensive coverage. Your rental reimbursement coverage is just that. Most people do not carry this, particularly if you have more than one car, because you're really wasting your time because you've got another car to drive if you're in a wreck. But if you're a single car operator, rental reimbursement coverage may be what you want. it'll pay up to so much a day, and it'll pay maybe $35, $40 a day, and you'll find out that your rental car is going to cost you $65, $75, $100 a day. So you're in the hole right off the bat, and then they'll only give you a maximum of a certain amount of days, and so that's coverage. And I know you got questions or want some examples, so
Well,
take it and run with it.
actually, I know everything on the board because I'm an agent. But okay, if a person is underinsured right now, or needs to make changes to their policy, how would they go about doing that?
Call their insurance carrier, and I'm convinced over the years that most of the folks that sell this stuff, they don't see the other end of it where we do. I see why it's important to have. Agents and agents' assistants really aren't out there seeing that, and they really don't understand it. Like so many times, agents will recommend that their client or their customer not buy uninsured to save $15 a month. Well, that's ridiculous. The only thing on this policy that's for you is under automobile liability. After that, automobile liability is to protect you from other folks and to pay for their damages. Everything else is basically for you. And that's the stuff people leave off, which is interesting, because your UM/UIM coverage pays you. Your med payments pay you. Your collision damage pays you. Your comprehensive insurance pays you. And your rental reimbursement pays you back. The only thing, and that's stuff that people leave off. They don't quite get the gist of it.
Okay. If you're underinsured, you go to your agent, get them to adjust your policy.
Right.
You can do that at any time.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Uh,
Before a crash, you can't go in after the crash.
yeah, that would not be good.
I've had people try to do that, but it doesn't work. Now, I'll tell you what we do sometimes. We settle a case for the limits of whatever the at-fault driver has, whether it's 25, 50, or 100, whatever. And then we make a demand against our carrier for uninsured benefits. And they say, your client, you're insured, your client does not have them. And I say, send me the written statement where they rejected the coverage. And if they can't produce it, I got coverage,
Right.
25, 50. Now, we may have to pay a premium of $10 or $12.
Right.
But, you know, when you fix to get $25,000, what's a premium of $15,000, $20,000? I'm $15, $20. So it's good to get out your deck page every now and then, look at it, take it to your insurance agent or take it to a personal injury lawyer. I looked at my parents years ago and was shocked at how little they had. So we redid it. Of course, the agent was glad to see me coming because I sell insurance for them because I see the need for it. I think a lot of times the agencies themselves really don't see the damage that happens to folks when they're uninsured or underinsured or just not any insurance.
Okay, I'm going to be the judge. You've got 1 minute. Okay, I'm here your close.
What you want.
I'm here your close in 1 minute.
My close is this. Most likely you will be involved in a car wreck at some time in your life, particularly if you're on the interstate in this state. I've been out there for 4 days and it's awful. So I would go meet with your insurance agent and get more coverage. You cannot not have coverage. You need it to protect yourself. Either way you go about it. So that would be what I would recommend. Upgrade your coverage, spend a little money on your coverage because most likely sometime you're going to have a fender bender or worse.
Okay, what we're going to do is put up that Walton Law Firm billboard, and the information is going to be on the screen. We've got 30 seconds in this segment, but if you'll put back the information for Walton Law Firm. Okay,
There you go.
All right.
And we're in Auburn and Montgomery, so we go to people's houses. If they're too injured, like I've got to run to Casita, Alabama tomorrow. A lady was was in the hospital for 4 weeks, just now got home, wants me to come visit with her in her home. So we do house calls. If you're unable to get to us, we come to you.
All right. We've been in the Walton Law Firm segment of the show. It's waltonlaw.net on the web. You see the numbers up front. If you need assistance, give us a call. Thank you so much, Trip, for coming on.
Enjoyed it.
All right, as always. And we'll be back after these commercial messages.